Hello, my friends, and welcome to the United Nations of Horror. Please enter freely of your own will and leave some of the happiness you bring. Mark, hello, come in to my castle. Welcome to the United Nations of Horror.
Well, thank you, Dracula. That's I'm a little daunted. I'm starting to feel like Thomas Hatter in Shadow of the Vampire. You know, it's like, should I do this? So anyway, today we're covering a Dracula film. We love a bit of Dracula, don't we? We do love a bit.
We really do. I'm a longtime fan of Dracula. I think Dracula probably taught me to read, and as I told you, the current film we're going to be talking about today calls me to go back, and I've started rereading Dracula yet again for probably the 300th time.
Yeah,
it's such a classic.
It's such a great book. It's funny because when people talk about it, they say, it's not very well written. You think it's a fantastic page turner of a story, right?
I agree.
So shut up. Is my view.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
my sentiments exactly.
Great book. But we are covering a Dracula film, as well. Everyone knows what we're covering because it'll be in the next show. Title.
Exactly.
Nosferatu, which we kind of have hedged around, haven't we? Because we did Shadow of the Vampire when it actually came out of cinemas, but now we're finally going to talk about the film. So. Was this a first watch for you, or did you see this one before?
This was a first watch for me. I wanted to catch it in theaters, but, the holidays got busy, and it strangely enough came out right around the New Year, I believe. And so I just never got to the theater. And
Boxing Day in the UK, which is the 26th of December, it came out.
Yeah.
In the UK, I believe, if I remember rightly. And I did go see it at the theatre. But so this was a second watch for me. And I actually watched the extended version this time. There's not that much difference. It's only like a couple of minutes here or there. And it's only two scenes. So to me, they're kind of the same.
I felt the same.
I felt the extended one was interesting and probably one to watch. The one I'll be watching in the future, and I am going to be getting this film on 4K at some point. It's quite expensive on 4K at the minute, but I'm waiting for the price to drop. I think you can only get like limited editions at the minute, but once it gets to a more reasonable price, I'll probably be getting a 4K because I have to say I really enjoyed the second watch of this more than the first, way more than the first. But anyway,
there's a lot to dissect here about this film, isn't there? I mean, I guess we'll roll the trailer here in a second, and I feel like the trailer really, it doesn't tell you much of anything, which is very smart the way they did this. But shall we go ahead and roll the trailer before we begin?
Yeah,
here?
Just before we roll it, though, I just got to say, I remember seeing this trailer in the cinema, assuming it's the same trailer. It might not be, there might be different versions, but the trailer did get me psyched to see it when I saw it. I think I probably saw it late September, October time, and I was quite psyched to see Nosferatu. So it was an effective trailer, as far as I was concerned. But let's go ahead.
Yeah, I agree, too. It's one of those things where less is more, I think, and this trailer is definitely that. So here we go.
Come to me. Come to me. I've never shared my secret with any soul.
You've had these spells since childhood. Tell me what you can from the beginning.
It is like a dream. It was our wedding. When we turned around, everyone was dead. The stench of their bodies was horrible. Standing before me was death. But I'd never been so happy.
This creature is a force more powerful than evil. Its desire is to consume all life on Earth. Only you can redeem us. He is coming.
There is a devil in this world, and I have met him.
But you could never please me as he could. I'm ready.
So yeah, a very good trailer there, very strong, and
Moody,
right?
Moody.
Very moody. Yeah, I think the key is that you really, you don't see Count Orlok in this at all in this trailer, and I think that's really smart because they wanted to sort of save the reveal. They were really guarded with how Count Orlok was going to look. I guess I wonder if they were worried about how audiences would receive the new look. Mark, what did you think of the look? And we'll talk about the story elements too, and we'll get to all that. But what did you think of the initial look of the 2024 Count Orlok?
When I first saw this, the first watch of this film, I wasn't that taken with it because I was expecting something much more like Max Schreck's characterisation, or indeed the 79 characterisation. So it's quite different. So I wasn't. It was one of the reasons I didn't thoroughly like it the first time around. However, on rewatch, I really dug it, and I remember elements I did like of it the first time around. It impressed me even more this time around. Essentially, he is a dead thing, right? He's a dead thing, in a way that Shrek's one wasn't necessarily. I mean, Shrek's one was a sinister, creepy, malevolent, animalistic thing, but this one, he's a dead warlord, right? Who's used to power and being in charge, right? That's what he is. And you feel like it's his willpower that's keeping him alive. I feel like there were some elements in this of black magicianship. Clearly, there was some black magicianship in his character, which again wasn't so much in the original as much, or indeed in Dracula itself. So yeah, I thought it was a really interesting, and I really liked the performance way more on the second watch. Basically, I think I went in loaded with the expectations, and when they weren't met, it kind of made the film a bit lesser for me. And all that's dropped away with this second watch. That's how I feel. Anyway, how about you? What do you think?
No, I really like it because it is so different, and it's not at all what I was expecting. Like you, I was expecting sort of a Max Schreck, perhaps an homage, something a little bit different, obviously. But it took me by surprise at first, especially the mustache. I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool throwback to the real Vlad Tepes. And as you say, they definitely have sort of elements of him being more of a black magician in life. In fact, they mention, I can't remember the term that they use, but I looked it up, and it is like basically a practitioner of black magic, a wizard in Romanian folklore, which I thought was very interesting.
Also explains quite significantly a part of the plot where he could communicate with Ellen, across vast distances, even though he's never encountered her.
Yeah, and that part confused me when I first watched it too. I was like, okay, like this is I get he has a connection to her, but in many ways it's interesting because it seems like the like her calling out to the void is sort of what brings him back.
Yeah,
you know,
it's her feelings about certain things as a younger woman has attracted him, right? Has caught his attention. It's almost like Sauron, the Eye of Sauron being caught attention, right? That's kind of what's going on. In fact, I mean, the whole story in many respects reminded me of a couple of other films, which I'll talk about when we get to it. But there was this feeling that something in her did call out to him, even though it was probably subconscious and not deliberate. And then that's bound them together. And then that informs the entire plot, doesn't it? There's an entire plot of why it fell. Whereas it being an accident in Dracula, do you know what I mean? The locking onto Mina in Dracula is just that's how the story unfolds. In this, it's almost a conspiracy from the beginning to bring him to her, isn't it?
It really is.
Again, not in Nosferatu. That particular plot dynamic, him and Helen are a thing in the 22 Nosferatu, but it unfolds as part of the story. But rather than being a sort of an instigator of action, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, it's all about her getting married, and his jealousy means that he wants to. Nosferatu's jealousy, Orlok's jealousy, is what
he's not pleased.
No.
Not pleased at all.
One other thing I will say about the film is I think a very small cast, isn't it, for such a big film? I mean, lots of extras, but in terms of acting characters, very small cast. They're all fantastic.
Oh, gosh. I agree. Really excellent. I can't say enough, particularly about Willem Dafoe. Like I thought he blew me away in this. I mean, he's always great.
Willem Dafoe is very good, and he was in the frame for being a Nosferatu for quite a long time in development, apparently, which is interesting because he played him in Shadow of the Vampire, right?
Yeah, it would have been kind of interesting to see if he would have done anything different in this, but I think they made the right decision here, you know?
Yeah, I do. I mean, he plays, the Van Helsing equivalent, which is von Franz. Professor Franz.
German Van Helsing, pretty much.
Rather than Dutch, right?
Indeed.
And we get I think Lily-Rose Depp is absolutely fantastic in this. I did as well. Her physicality, as well as her actual acting and desperation. In many ways, her face acting reminded me a bit of the old silent movie. The Trial of Joan of Arc? That one from the 20s. So because it was so good and expressive, and what she was going through was quite horrific in places.
And it looks it too, as you say. The physical acting, her performance really is outstanding. Like all of it. I don't know how she was able to do some of that. The like seizure like movements.
Yeah, I assume some of it was CG assisted, but it's hard to tell really. I mean, it is very good, and some of the effects like around her eyes may have been CG assisted as well. When her eyes go white, for example, things like that. But again, we get terrific performances from everyone. Nicholas Hoult, her husband Thomas, is excellent. He has quite a lot to carry in the first half of the film. There's lots of close-ups of his face in terror and sort of dealing with it. And then we get Bill Skarsgård, right? He's something else as well. I was wondering if it'd be a bit more like Pennywise when I first went into this, but it wasn't. It was its own thing.
It's totally different, which surprised me a lot too.
You couldn't recognise him under all the makeup, right?
Not at all.
I would not been able to guess who the actor was if I didn't know from the cast. And it says here, I'm looking at IMDb, Wikipedia. He said he was a Solomonar, which I think is
that's it.
Yeah, cursed by the devil to be a vampire. That's what he is. So there is a black magic element to all of this.
A lot of occult stuff going on in this, which I thought made the plot even more rich. Now, let me ask you this, Mark. Did you get Coppola's Bram Stoker vibes from this at all?
Some, not in terms of the colour palette at all, but in terms of the quality and the framing of shots and the stillness of shots, I got both Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula and Werner Herzog's Nosferatu. In the staticness of some of the shots, because the camera didn't move much, right? We just had a scene play out in front of us. I mean, it would sometimes, obviously, it would change for close-ups and things like that. But there was an awful lot of mid-range shots, so compositional shots, where you see in the room as well as the acting within it. So yeah, I think there was. Some of that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Oh, I was just going to mention, I definitely got a lot of Coppola vibes, and I agree with you with, the was it 71 Nosferatu?
79.
79, yeah. I definitely got some of that, too. Now that you mention it, at the time, I didn't even think about that so much. But yeah, definitely.
Certainly the first half where Hutter was going to the castle, it did remind me a lot of the 79, when Hutter had to walk across fields to get there and encounter gypsies and stuff like that. And of course, their outfits were quite similar. They kept to the style of the 22 one in terms of Hutter's outfit. That great coat with the and the funny hat, the baggy hat kind of look.
Yeah, I love that hat and the coat. We both need to add that to our wardrobe list.
It's like a duster or something. And of course we've already mentioned Willem Dafoe's pretty wonderful. I have to also mention I really liked Emma Corrin as her friend. Emma Corrin's an interesting actress. I've seen her in a few things, most notably The Crown. She played Princess Diana, and more recently Cassandra Nova in the Wolverine Deadpool movie.
She was
pretty good in that, and she's good in this. Yeah. And her husband is Aaron Taylor Johnson, right? Very good again.
Yeah, excellent.
He's called Friedrich. Now he's kind of a composite of Arthur Homewood. Well, no, he's really Arthur Homewood, isn't he? Thinking about it, yeah. Because we also have Dr. Sievers, who's played by Ralph Ineson, as the analogue of John Seward. Ralph Ineson is a great actor, really effective presence. He was really good in Eggers' The Witch as the father.
He was.
As the patriarch, really good in that. In fact, again, that entire cast was good as well. So, it's,
I really liked The Witch. And also, what is the name of the one on the film he did about the lighthouse? I believe it's called The Lighthouse, isn't it?
Was Ralph Ineson in that? I remember Willem Dafoe being in it. I don't remember Ralph Ineson being.
I just meant the movie itself is really
in terms of the look of it. Yeah.
The look, yeah.
Yeah, I really like The Lighthouse too. I think that's a great film. I like Eggers' work generally. So when I first saw this was probably, I think this is his least film out of the ones I've seen, but on second watch, I don't think it is. I think The Witch takes it just about. But I really like this, and I like The Lighthouse. They're all very close, but I think this is my second favourite Eggers film that I've seen, Nosferatu. And also the other actor I want to mention who's really good is Simon McBurney as Knock. Knock is a comedy character almost in 1922 Nosferatu, isn't he?
Yeah.
But here definitely. He's full on mad. He's the Renfield kind of character, but he's also the head of the firm that Hutter works for, and he instigates everything by sending him off to the castle purportedly to do a business transaction, a selling of a house,
right.
But he's under Orlok's control from the start, isn't he? And we see him doing black magic-y stuff in like naked in a circle of candles, doing esoteric word chants or spells while he's communicating with Orlok. So it's all planned. He buys.
Oh yeah.
really like the place that Orlok bought, but we don't see much of it. It's kind of a massive crumbling wreck. An old, very imposing house, isn't it, on its own grounds?
Oh yeah, perfect.
But we
perfect
only see
for Dracula.
We only see it once. Well, they go there as well, but so we see it the ground. But in terms of long, a full shot of the whole place, we only see it the once. But yeah, yeah. I mean, a couple of films occurred to me while I was watching this quite strongly. Does this remind you of any other films? Is there anything like this you can think of? You've already mentioned Coppola's Dracula. Is there anything else?
Oh, man. I think Coppola's Dracula is the main one that came to mind for me. I'm glad you mentioned the 79 Nosferatu because, yeah, particularly the travel portion of it with Hutter, that is similar, which I don't know why, but in both films, I really dig the traveling scenes as he goes through this unknown country, this mysterious world of Transylvania that he has no clue about. And, he meets the gypsies, and of course they're very frightened when he mentions Orlok, that he's going to see Orlok. And
yeah,
I think all that is just so well done. It's very different in this film compared to Dracula 79 in some ways. Like he has the one dream, and spoiler
which
alert,
is very like Coppola's version, isn't it? That bit is very much like Coppola's version. The bit with the gypsies, with the naked girl riding across graves to find the vampire and stuff like that.
Definitely,
that was quite Coppola-ish. I would say, but it's still its own thing.
Yeah,
still its own thing, right?
It definitely is. I feel like it's honestly. Well, I'll save this comment for the end, but I was really just struck with the imagery in this, much like The Witch.
Yeah,
it's very powerful imagery, and as you said at the beginning, very dark. So I mean, I guess you could say The Witch, but obviously, that's also a Robert Eggers film, so that makes sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How about for you? Any other films come to mind?
Well, the films I'm thinking of are more like about similarities to the story and the nature of the story than look and feel. And there were two in particular. While I was watching the film in the cinema, it strongly struck me. This feels quite a lot like Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, which has Laura Palmer in trouble, kind of with a malevolent being that's kind of obsessed with her and trying to pin her down. And I just thought, this feels like a remake of Fire Walk with Me while I was watching it. And the other one was The Exorcist. In many ways, it feels like this could be Pazuzu and an older Reagan, right?
That is true, very true.
Where the impetus is sexual rather than just possession. So those two films kind of feel spiritually akin to this version of Nosferatu. I feel it has more in common with Fire Walk with Me, say, than the 1922 Nosferatu in some respects, in terms of the dynamic between Ellen and Orlok. Yeah, so substituting Laura Palmer and Killer Bob, or Reagan and Pazuzu, and you, I feel there's some sort of kinship there. So
I could see that for sure.
That was my feelings on it. Now, we're not really going through this scene by scene, and the reason is the story's fairly straightforward, I think, and the actual plot is simple, isn't it? And this is a 2-hour plus film, but it isn't like action packed or anything. It takes its time. In a way, it's Lynchian in that we're not in a rush to get anywhere. But this is a mood piece in some respects, right?
Absolutely.
So it's kind of an interesting one, and basically, it does start with, before anything, Ellen as a young woman having these dreams about being visited by this thing, and wanting to be with this thing, right?
She seems like a very lonely young lady, And I think that's kind of a part of adolescence, as like just being a teenager for men and women. And so, I think it's interesting, because she goes into it a little bit later on how, just how lonely her life was, particularly before she met Hutter, who knows about sort of her issues. Problems, he doesn't, of course, really believe that she's experienced these things, but he's sympathetic to it.
Yeah, and I think the issues are he's been sent away, and this coincides with her remembering or dreaming about this thing that happened in her past, and it disturbing her deeply, asking him to stay, but he's got to make money. He's got to improve his lot in his firm, and he believes this is the way to do it. He doesn't know he's being set up.
Right.
So he says, I've really got to go, but he asks his friend Frederick and Anna, who have got young daughters, twins, I think, as well, to sort of keep an eye on her. So he then goes off travelling to the Carpathians, to Transylvania, and he encounters all the peasants who are not happy whenever Orlok is mentioned, and they do this ceremony I mentioned where they're riding a naked woman, a virgin I believe, through the graveyard to try and find vampires, and they find one and stake it, which freaks Thomas out completely.
That scene is really quite gruesome, and I remember when I saw it, it made me slightly jump, because I didn't expect the staking of the vampire so suddenly. So
in some respects,
that one got me pretty good.
This is one of the more scary elements of the film. It's not a particularly scary film, but it's an atmospheric film and tense and close.
Exactly.
And this is about as close as it gets. Anyway, when he wakes up in the morning, there doesn't seem to be anyone around, so he just continues on foot back to the castle. When he finally gets them, Orlok's. It's interesting how much we don't see him, isn't it? Considering he's talking, but you can barely see his features, can you? Because he's wearing stuff that hides his face. He's in shadow, so you can't really see his face. And his way of talking is like quite extraordinary. It kind of resonates. It's like having a bass speaker and talking through a bass speaker whenever he talks, doesn't it?
I mean. Crazy deep voice, and I know that I've read that the actor, I'm blanking on the name here, Mark.
Nicholas Hoult or Bill Skarsgård.
Bill Skarsgård. I'm sorry, I was blanking on the name there for a second, but Bill Skarsgård, he went through like training, and this is his actual voice, which really surprised me.
Wow, that is amazing.
Because it doesn't sound like him at all, but he trained with like some kind of opera. I think it may have been in Germany, but I may be mistaken there. But my gosh, to achieve that level of voice and the kind of Romanian accent, if you will, but a very deep Romanian accent that I can't really do justice to. It's quite incredible. I was very impressed that he
it was something
did his own voice.
It was something,
and he's got like this growl almost going on, like a wolf, like the big bad wolf sort of thing too. That I thought was cool. Just this really also labored breathing, almost like a dying old man, which is also kind of disturbing. I felt.
Yeah, his constant wheeziness feels like he's almost the effort of breathing, right? You kind of feel it.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, Hutter cuts his finger while having his dinner. He's shaking a lot while he's trying to eat. The count sort of says you must eat and all of this. Thomas asks him about the Romanian customs, and he explains it a bit, but then he gets annoyed. This is the extended this is one of the scenes that are extended in the extended version. It goes on a minute and a half, I'd say, of him explaining stuff before he tells Hutter he don't want to talk about it anymore. Whereas in the original, he just cuts him off. And I remember actually in the cinema, I think, no, I wanted to hear a bit more about that, but didn't think it was anything. It was just the script.
Yeah, I enjoyed the extended version.
So that's why I think I like the extended one a little more.
I would agree. I'm glad they put that back in because I also watched both cuts, and it is. I feel it adds a lot, just the fact that he goes on more. But I will say that we very quickly see that this is not the hospitable Dracula that you get in the book and the previous films. In fact, he very quickly tells him, like, call me Lord.
He doesn't brook any familiarity, really, direct familiarity.
Yeah.
He demands to see Thomas's locket of his wife, and he doesn't give it back. Then he makes Thomas sign a document, which is kind of weird characters, sort of implying it's a contract for buying, but it's not, is it? It's turning over something occult to the Count. Thomas also finds he's got a bite on his chest, which scares the hell out of him.
Now something interesting.
And he's getting ill, isn't he? Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Now Robert Eggers, he was very interested in real accounts of vampires. Specifically, I know in Romania, and there were also a lot of accounts, even written here in America, and I know, of course, most famously in England of the people thought that vampires were real, but they tended to think of them more as like spirits than handsome creatures coming back from the dead. Yeah. But specifically, there were commentaries written of the vampire sucking blood from the chest near the heart. So Eggers, rather than being a bite on the neck, he wanted it to be a bite on the chest, which I thought was quite interesting as well. And I too have been interested in the accounts of people writing about what they thought to be real life vampires. I mean, back then they didn't understand why bodies got bloated, and so they just thought, oh gosh, these people are coming back from the dead and feeding on us. They didn't have science like we do today. But nonetheless, it's very interesting that it's fueled these myths for all these years that we still consider pretty scary today.
Yeah, it's an interesting. The myths are much more Eastern European. Vampires wasn't really a thing in the UK. We have a lot of mythological creatures, but vampires. I mean, saying that, there's vampires in almost every culture of some form. They're just not as significant. In Romania and such like, they're way more significant in the folklore. In the UK, it's more witches or banshees, things like that, right? Will-o'-the-wisps, that kind of thing. Fairies. But vampires are much more a thing for Eastern Europe, and they kind of evolved that. Obviously promoted by Dracula, and other works. But Dracula is the big one, right? Dracula's the big one.
Yep, he's the big daddy of the vampires for sure.
Indeed. So Thomas is getting sicker and sicker. He finds a second bite mark. He tries to escape, but he managed to find himself in a crypt where he finds a coffin where it looks like Orlok is just decaying away, frankly. It looks like a decomposing corpse. But Orlok arises and his dogs chase Hutter. But Hutter manages to crawl out onto a sort of little ledge, but then fall into rapid water. Which sweeps him away, probably does him a favour. But he gets found, I think it's at a nunnery or a church or something. They find him and they start nursing him back to health. It's here that he finds out that Orlok was one of these Sholomants who became a vampire. Well, maybe became a vampire for making a pact with the devil, which, is the case. And then Orlok... he's communicating with Nock. We sometimes see seen Nock sort of writhing around on a floor surrounded by candles and an archaic book, an arcane sort of knowledge book, sort of chanting to his master. So Nock's preparing for him as well, right? So all gets on his bow. We've seen this. The Demeter in Dracula. I can't remember what it's called in this version. I do like, we do get some imagery of there's also stuff going on back on Wisberg where Alan and Anna are walking along the beach, and it's a kind of interesting scene because there's crucifixes, or like it's almost like it's a graveyard. And I have to say, at this point, I was thinking, "Oh, Whitby looks great," and I realised it's not Whitby, is it? It's in Germany. It's Wisberg. So used to Dracula.
Me too.
Great shots there. Great shots. Look fantastic.
It's so beautiful. I mean, it's a very dark kind of gray. I know. I read too that it was shot in on 35 millimeter. In colour.
It kind of looks like that, and they've damped down the colour, it looks like, to be a little greyer. But I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Or maybe they've just costumed it to look greyer, right? The costumes are very sort of black and white, grey kind of stuff. Not much colour. Not much colour, right?
No, it's a very dark film, and it seems like the colour sort of changes throughout the film depending on what scene we're in. Like, the beginning is very... almost like old school black and white, very, very gray. And then, some of the inside scenes are a little more colorful, but like you said, a lot of stuff is sort of in shadow. Like when we first encounter Orlok, I love that we don't actually get a good view of him at first. It's really, a lot of it is what you don't see. I think that's, like we were talking about Chucky, a lot of that is what you don't see, and your imagination sort of fills in the gaps. And when you do see the count, it's even more impactful. But I'm going off on a tangent here, Mark.
Well,
back to you.
It occurred to me while I was watching this, when we get to the ship and the sailors and the horrible plague stuff, you could actually cut in The Last Voyage of the Demeter in here, and it wouldn't be out of place, because it kind of looked similar. Dark corridors within the ship and stuff like that. But meanwhile, like I say, Ellen, there's stuff going on with Ellen. She's starting to have seizures, and they call in Dr. Sievers, who then starts restricting her, saying, "Oh, it could be a blood flow. Make her wear a corset while she's sleeping. It'll make calm things down, and this, that, and the other, tie her up." It's all this kind of stuff, basically restrict her. But he's at a loss. She's getting worse, so he actually then calls on his former mentor, who he does counsel Frederick to sort of say, "Well, he's quite unusual. He's a bit different, but he knows an awful lot." So we then get Willem Dafoe make his entrance to France. Apparently, that guy's meant to be Swiss. I didn't realise that. I thought it was German.
Is he?
From France.
I think they do mention that, and I just totally forgot.
And the reason he's been kind of not fallen out of favour with his sort of contemporary scientists and so on is he did study quite heavily the occult, which everyone thinks is ridiculous in this day and age kind of thing. But he has this knowledge, right? In many respects, he's kind of like de Richelieu in The Devil Rides Out in that respect, right? He's kind of knows his stuff.
Yeah, but if you met him, you would think he's just a complete, just completely nuts, because he's pretty much like high on, I guess, opioids when they first meet him sitting there, or maybe it's marijuana. I'm not sure what, but he's on something, and he's not even with it, And then I can't remember the phrase he mutters to him, but he finally kind of gets him to come around, and then he's just fine. He reminded me a little bit of Anthony Hopkins. Van Helsing. Yeah,
there was some similar, quirky. And
quirky,
energetic, but also quite understanding and human. Deeply sort of empathetic in some respects. So there are similarities. But he immediately says, "No, I don't think it's what you think it is," and he's saying, "You've been restricting us. Stop it. Let her do not restrict." But she will rave all night. He goes, "Well, let her rave." Which is interesting, right? He kind of understands. You almost expect him to do, that little interlude with Anthony Hopkins and Mina, where he just dances with her and talks to her. When there's no music, that bit, it kind of reminiscent of that.
It would have gone
also gone completely bananas, and he's been institutionalised. He's biting the head off pigeons and all sorts, right?
That scene was pretty wild. You know, it made me think of Ozzy Osbourne biting the bat's head off. You know, kind of that vibe where he's just completely off his rocker now.
Yeah.
I kind of like the melding of Renfield and you know the
employer of
the employer. Yeah. I thought that was
good story-wise. It's a good compaction of characters, quite well, and it works.
Yeah, it makes the movie kind of move a little faster.
Well, it also
although,
explains
as we said,
the grand plot, doesn't it? Right, it explains the grand plot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But they basically put together that Knock is serving Nosferatu Orlok. So they kind of realise that. But when and Thomas has got back to Wisberg under his own sleeve, but so has Orlok's ship has landed full of plague rats. And they just look at this ship that's with rats streaming on and say, plague rats! They know what it is. And we see quite a wonderful shot of Knock punting down an empty canal with obviously the coffin of Orlok talking to Orlok, who's, you know, not answering, he's in his coffin. From behind, right? We see them approaching the town. In quite a languorous kind of shot and scene. I quite like that scene. That was quite cool.
I do too. I definitely got kind of the 79 Nosferatu vibes from that scene, even though there's nothing quite like it in 79, but you know, just
there's
rats
bits
all
like
over the city.
And again, it's very cinematic, the 79 one, when the ship comes in and the whole town. In fact, the realisation of the town from this age, when was it, 1838, I think this was set. Not Dracula's. Well, Dracula was like 1870 or something, wasn't it? 1880.
I think
but
so.
This is set in 1838, so it's earlier in that century. Knock manages to do this because he escapes, doesn't he? Kills a guard and escapes.
Yeah, now that scene actually got me as well. That one, you know, it's not scary again, like you say, but it's like, oh my god, you know. Because it's just so sudden. Also, the camera angle is very interesting there that they use. Sort of this, like you're very out of proportion. Like you think he's like over on the side, but he's actually not. You know, we find that he just sort of actually just gets the guard to come down and just bites him. You know, viciously, animalistic like. Good stuff. And
so
again, I'm not sure. Was that practical? Was it a practical
somewhat,
effect, or was it
but
not?
No. I'm pretty sure the background was CGI as they were going towards the town. I'm pretty sure. I think the practical was the boat and the water.
It all looks great, though. You know.
It looked somewhat like filtered as well, like almost like a cartoon painted from a graphic novel or something like that. Like they do with 300, or maybe not 300. That's a big extreme, but that kind of thing. And we see this is where we see the first shot of the manor house he's bought, which is quite magnificent, but ultimately decaying to hell. You know, it's just and then this is where Orlok then first appears to Ellen, and I really like the little dialogue here. It's kind of quite telling. He says to her, basically, he's there because she wants him to be there, and she says, "You're a demon," and he goes, "I am an appetite, nothing more." Suggesting she's brought him here, not he. Basically, he's kind of gaslighting her, isn't he? He's got, and the whole vibe is she's got to do it of her own free will. And he says this to Knock, but then he's coercing her by saying, "If you got 3 nights, I will start killing people you know, and on the 3rd night, if you don't agree, I will kill your husband." So it's not entirely voluntary. Let's put it that way.
He's definitely he's definitely coercing her.
Yeah, he's basically obsessed with her, isn't he? And she's trying to resist, but he's saying there's something in her. Now, this is weird because it's kind of, you could see it as a reflection on toxic masculinity or victim blaming. That sort of thing.
Certainly.
Right? But it feels a little richer than with what's going on here. Orlok and Ellen kind of are kindred spirits, but only she doesn't want to submit to her base, whatever is causing this. And he is expecting her to, right?
She does obviously love her husband, you know, and wants to remain faithful to him. which, obviously very cool. But Dracula is sort of that temptation in a way.
Yeah.
But much more on a kind of almost like a rapey vibe,
Oh yeah, this is coercion of the most extreme degree. But I think it's part of his black magicness or something that he cannot just force her; she has to comply. Right? I think there's something about that. And we do find out the document that Thomas signed, which presented to him as a thing about the house, was actually a document that voids the marriage or denies his own marriage, or something like that. So basically, it says you have 3 nights, and if you haven't submitted by not the 3rd night, I'll kill your husband, and the plague will destroy this town. That's basically it. So Ellen is kind of doesn't know what to do. She's so glad Thomas is back. She then has sex with Thomas in a fairly sort of physical way.
Indeed.
Basically, to show Orlok that it's her husband she wants, not him. But she kind of almost gets possessed in it, doesn't she? Starts like her body starts twisting and all sorts. And Orlok is enraged by this, and actually he sends rats to kill Anna, who's sharing a bed with Ellen. And we also find that Anna was with child, she had a baby inside her, and also we see a really brutal scene where Orlok is killing the little girls. That is really brutal, really
disturbing for sure. I was like, oh, were they really gonna? Yeah, and they do. You don't see it, but you see it.
You just see him throw the body to one side like he's finished with it, like it's a
it's so brutal.
And then Frederick, is beside himself with grief. He cannot deal with it anymore. And there's quite a bit of scenes with contention between Ellen and Frederick, isn't it? Like him saying, "Look, calm yourself, woman. I'll overlook this indiscretion," because she's getting more and more extreme in what she's saying. He's not listening though. That's the thing.
I think he just thinks it's sort of like female hysteria, right?
Yeah.
And back then, that was pretty common for men to think. So he's just kind of got your typical view of that age, Yeah. He doesn't quite understand until much later on that this is real. This is not just hysteria.
And basically, he's just almost driven mad by grief, and he dies of the plague in the end.
I felt terrible for him. Especially I can't imagine losing, your wife, both your children, and a third that's on the way. I mean, it's really tragic. Again, it's not a happy movie, not a feel good movie by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, so what happens next? It's basically, von Franz realises how to kill Nosferatu. It has to be by the willing sacrifice of a fair maid, right? So he then kind of conspires with Ellen to keep Thomas away whilst Orlok is around.
Indeed, yeah. Enter freely of your own will, except. There's a little bit more to it, I guess, in this film, but I like the way they did this.
Yeah, and basically Thomas, von Franz and Sievers go to the manor looking for Nosferatu, and they find Knock. They think he's Orlok, don't they, in the coffin, and they stake Knock.
They do, yeah.
But then it's kind of a diversion. Thomas realises that they're keeping him away from Ellen by doing this. So Orlok may be with her, so he rushes back. Meanwhile, Orlok's been summoned by Ellen, and she pledges herself to him and allow him to feed, but keeps pulling him back. So he feeds until sunlight, much like the 1922 version, where the sunlight intrudes and destroys him. And Ellen has her last breaths as well. And we see that amazing shot of the body of Orlok on top of her, but when it pans down, his legs are basically skeletal, right? He's
it's
decaying,
creepy.
but not in a hammer. I'm turning to dust way. In a I'm already a walking corpse. I'm just settling kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's kind of the vibe. The feeding is quite disturbing. That slurping noise, and he's hunching to the back when he feeds. Stuff like that.
It's
grim.
It is. It's some demonic stuff for sure.
And Ellen's and on her last breath, and Thomas holds her hand while she dies. Von Franz says, "We're free of this," and it just ends.
Yeah,
really fine.
Wow,
really fine film.
Impactful.
Really fine film. This. Okay, have you got any final thoughts about it? We could do our feedback. Let's do final thoughts and scoring, and then we could do our feedback.
Yeah.
How about that? So, got any final thoughts?
Oh man, final thoughts. I have to say, I think this is the best Dracula film to come around in a long time, and I enjoy all the Dracula films we cover on here. Mark, you know I'm a big Dracula guy, and I know you are too.
Yeah.
But man, I also think it's the most frightening Dracula film in many ways. It's not scary, but the subject matter is very tense. It will give you that tense feeling, kind of how The Witch wasn't particularly scary, but it had that tense atmosphere. Robert Eggers is very good, I think, at creating that. Yeah. I love the occult stuff that they've mixed into this with sort of the real life kind of elements of vampirism. And as far as a rating, I am really tempted to give this a 5 out of 5. I'm not going to give it a perfect score, but I am going to give it I'm going to say a 4.5, and it's definitely a high recommend for me. It's not my favorite Dracula film, but oh man, it's real close. How about you, Mark?
I think what you said kind of sums it up. It's probably the best Dracula film in decades. Probably, yeah. I mean, Coppola's is my favourite Dracula film.
Mine too.
I'd also put Nosferatu 22 above this in terms of Dracula films, personally. But I think this might be the third best Dracula film after those two. I just like the whole vibe. There's a woman in trouble vibe. There's other films that are kind of like this. There's a film called Possession, where a woman is kind of obsessed with something and her husband's trying to help her. So there's kind of elements of that as well. But like I say, it evoked various other films that I think are great films as well. That's a good sign. I just think the casting was superb. It worked so much better with the second one. I cannot believe how much more I liked it with a second watch. And I know what it was. It's my own fault. It's expectations made it feel not so great with that first watch.
Right. And that makes sense.
Yeah. I just thought it was all rather terrific, actually. And Lily-Rose Depp was outstanding. But so the rest of the cast were fantastic too. But I'd have to single her out as being the outstanding thing in this. But, all of them were great. Nicholas Hoult was great. Bill Skarsgård was great. Dafoe was great. It was all really good. And I've heard some people say, his character wasn't really needed. It didn't. I disagree. He brought the resolution. He brought a different perspective on things that made sense at the right time. So I thought it was a really solid film. I also would give it 4.5. I won't really know for sure until I watch it one more time, I think. And it may well go up to a 5. I don't think it's ever going to be less than 4.5, though, for me.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat there. It's so close to a 5 for me. So close to perfect. I guess the reason for me personally that I'm not giving it that perfect score is, I do compare it sort of to Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, and sort of, I guess maybe it's not right to put it against that, because if I was scoring it on its own, I would probably say, yeah, it's a perfect score, but it's kind of hard not to put it against other Dracula slash Nosferatu films. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Okay.
So,
should we get to feedback? Let's get to feedback.
Let's do it.
About this. Right. First feedback was from Tom Woodger. Hi, Tom. Thanks for.
How's it going, Tom? Thanks for the feedback.
And what he says is, while I did enjoy the film, I thought some of the changes to the story weakened the plot when compared to the 1922 film. I kind of see what you mean, Tom. In the 1922 one was a much shorter film, more compact, and it had much less other business. And the relationship between Nosferatu and Ellen was quite different, wasn't it? And that's part of the major plot in this new version. So yeah, that's the thing. Anyway, I'll go on. In the original novel, Dracula is defeated by a group of men who know best, led by Van Helsing, stepping in to save poor Mina and reducing her character to little more than a pawn in the battle of wits between Van Helsing and Dracula. Not sure that's entirely true. There's elements of that, but I think Mina's got a little more agency than that. Certainly when she reacts to being, I am unclean, my sisters are calling to me, stuff like that is kind of really interesting. I agree. And then he goes on, in the 1922 Nosferatu, Ellen has some psychic power which not only allows her to sense Jonathan's danger, but to see and be seen by Orlok, which we get in this version, right? And then he says, the Van Helsing character, whose name I can't remember, Franz, is reduced to an ineffectual bystander, and it is Ellen, i.e. Mina, who alone realises what must be done and sets out to do it alone and at the cost of her life. Yes, that is absolutely true.
That is true.
I think that's true of the 79 version as well. Is Ellen is the intelligent one, the one who knows there's only one way to kill the beast, and that's to, I don't know, seduce it or fool it or play up to its ego and show it that way. And then it goes on.
Ultimately,
in the 2024 version, the return of Van Helsing, while brilliantly played, turns the emphasis back onto men who know best, reducing Ellen's character again. And he also says in the UK. Maybe I feel he's more like an empathetic character to what Ellen kind of already knows. I think you lose days what she might already know. I'm not really sure. There's something to that, Tom. I can see
I
where you're
agree
coming from. Yeah,
I do too. But at the same time, I do think like she sort of is like, okay, like I can stop this, and if I can stop this, I gotta make the ultimate sacrifice. But I see what you're saying, Tom. I do. And I just to add, the original Nosferatu is such a classic. I mean, it's arguably the best version of Dracula ever filmed. And,
I think so.
So it's I don't think that anything will ever really beat that in many respects. But this is sort of a different take as well. But it has a lot of similarities. So it's sort of a unique melding of a lot of different source material,
Yeah. Tom then did a follow-up to this. He says, while I'm at it, in brackets, not while I thought about this a lot or anything, in the 2024 version, Orlok blackmails Ellen into giving herself to him by threatening to kill Jonathan. Whilst in the 1922 version, Ellen struggles with her desire for Orlok, despite him being physically revolting, implying that Orlok has some kind of irresistible power over humans, an idea that makes him scarier than just the ability to threaten and kill. I think there's something to that. There is something deeply sinister about Max Schreck's version.
I agree.
And it's I can kind of see why Eggers went a slightly different way, because how do you top that way of doing it? I mean, they tried it in the 79 version, didn't top it. It was creepy and sinister in places, and indeed scary, but it did not top Max Schreck's version. That was quite a startling version, right?
Yeah, one of the best. I love the kind of rat features that Max Schreck brought out of that that version. You know, it's still today. Even now, I mean, with all the technological advances we have, it's really almost unbeatable. It's just so scary.
It's something. It's something.
Yeah.
Next post we got Kevin Matthews. Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Hey, what's up, Kevin?
And he says, it sure is pretty and every element is great, but it doesn't really present anything new compared to the power of the original and the interesting interpretation of the material presented by Herzog. I enjoyed it. I own it. I will most likely not rewatch it. Why'd you own it then? I will most likely not rewatch it unless forced to for any writing or podcasting. Okay. I think we feel a bit more strongly about it, right? We like it.
Yeah,
I'm happy to rewatch this at some point. Not very often. It's quite a rich and imposing movie, right?
It's not a happy film, but
yeah. I mean, the new elements are plot, I guess, right? The whole black magic thing, but that is not a particularly interesting element. An element is like a character difference or something like that. So I kind of get it, but I thought there's something good about this movie. Sorry, Jason, I'll cut you off.
Yeah, I think. Oh no, you're fine. I was just gonna say. I think I will probably add it to the rotation, and I'll probably watch it every couple of years.
Yeah.
That's
a bit like Coppola's one, right? It's that
exactly.
Kind of level.
Yeah. In fact, it'll probably go in. Like, I'll probably watch the Coppola version and then watch this version or some kind of order like that. That's typically how I watch films. I'll watch one and then it leads to another similar film, and that's just how it goes.
Thinking about it, my Dracula watching is probably the one I'll probably watch the most is either Coppola's or the 22 Nosferatu, right? After that, it'd probably be this. And after that, it's probably Horror of Dracula, the first Hammer one. And then after that is Lugosi. I quite like watching the Lugosi one now and again, but I always hate the drag of the second half. The first half's amazing, though.
Yeah, I agree. Oftentimes I have to, or I will, I should say, I don't have to, but I'll skip a lot of that kind of
I don't
intermediate
skip it.
sections.
I put up with it though.
Yeah, you're nicer than me. I'm like,
it's
I've
quite
seen
a
this
short
before,
film,
but
it's quite a short film.
It is a short film. Yeah. I agree.
So thanks, Kevin. We got one more piece of feedback from Rolf Pickler. Hi, Rolf.
Hey, how's it going?
Almost always leaves us feedback. We appreciate it greatly, Rolf. So thank you.
Definitely.
But this one's fairly short. He says, "What do you make of Ellen being some sort of psychic, mystical avatar per Defoe's Van Helsing speech?" Well, I think that was part of the plot. I think it was kind of obvious. And he was just articulating what we in the audience had observed. So I feel like it's not like, ooh, that's a surprise, didn't see that coming. It just articulates what we kind of knew as the audience. That's kind of how I feel about it. She is clearly possessed, connected with Orlok from the first scene, right? The first scene shows that pre-marrying Thomas, right? I keep meaning to say Jonathan there, but Thomas Hutter. But so yeah.
So, in many ways, it's like you marry the girl, but she just has this old boyfriend that she just can't get over from the past.
Can you imagine him as an old boyfriend? Wow.
Yeah. He maybe he's not a looker, but there's just something about him.
There's something about him. Yeah, he's got the voice. It's that voice, right?
It's exactly that's it.
Talks to her, right?
Yeah. So, you just you can't get him to stay away. That Dracula. That Dracula.
Yeah, that guy. Oh, look. So we both enjoyed this one. Right, I think is it probably time to... We've rated it. We've done all that we need to. I feel like I want to talk about it more, but I think I've said everything. It's quite the film.
I agree. I think it's definitely very good, but I mean, and we could go on talking about Dracula, I think, all day, but yeah, I think we should probably wrap this episode up. So thanks very much to everyone for listening, and Mark, thank you for taking the time as always. I always have a blast, and with all the horror movies we talk about, but I get a little more psyched when it's Dracula or vampire talk, but especially Dracula talk. So we want to invite everyone to check out our Facebook group. You can go to facebook.com/groups/UN of Horror is the URL. We're also, I got to mention, we're available on YouTube as well as wherever you listen to your podcast. We're kind of all over the place these days. So whether you enjoy the video or the audio format, we've got you covered. And I'm trying to release those very close together. The audio will usually drop first, but it's usually a matter of hours now until we get the YouTube version out after that. So we've kind of got a system now that works. Mark, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. It's great to talk to you about this, and thanks for everyone listening. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. And again, we welcome your feedback. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up. We should mention, we're going to be covering more of the Chucky films, but we've also got some gems between now and then as well. So stay tuned.
And a little vacation time planned here, but not long, not too long. We won't be, we won't be missing for months or anything. We're just a week or two here and there. Right.
Indeed, like Dracula, we shall rise from the grave. Until next time on the United Nations of Horror.
The United Nations of Horror is a podcast about all things horror. From thrillers of yesteryear to today's modern horror, we are here to present fun and intelligent conversation about the genre films we love. Join us and please help spread the word about the United Nations of Horror podcast and videocast to horror fans across the globe. Find the podcast on all fine podcasting services. Join us on Facebook by simply going to facebook.com and entering in United Nations of Horror. You can also find us on YouTube by going to youtube.com and searching for United Nations of Horror podcast.